Hi guys, my name is Chris if you didn't already know, and welcome to my show SmegChris Review. Before I review a movie, I want to talk about a DVD. More specifically, this one, Doctor Who the movie. As many of you know, I am a fan of Doctor Who, and I have been since about, the early 1980s. According to my parents, I started watching it around the time of Tom Baker, but I actually remember Peter Davison more. But then Colin Baker took over, and then Sylvester McCoy, and then it just died a death. The BBC cancelled it, and then 7 years later, this happened. And all I remember from that time was it wasn't that great. The things that I do remember was Sylvester McCoy was in it and he got shot, and then Paul McGann took over, who was a fantastic doctor that I recall. And I vaguely recalled that Eric Roberts was in it as the Master. But you have to remember it was 25 years ago since I watched it, until recently. And the thing is, it still isn't that great. Don't get me wrong, it was a good go trying to get the character to come back to TV. It just didn't feel quite right. Firstly, it was set in San Francisco, and I was right where Sylvester McCoy gets shot and he ends up in hospital. I completely forgot that his things got stolen from this kid, who ends up teaming up with the Master. Why am I still holding that? And then after Sylvester McCoy regenerates into Paul McGann, things get a little bit more stranger. I like the fact that the Doctor didn't really remember who he was at the beginning, and that's become a recurring theme with the Doctor, is that every time there's a regeneration, the Doctor is always trying to figure out who they are. And of course, eventually he does remember. Although I do have to say that Paul McGann does do a bit of overacting. But that's nothing compared to what Eric Roberts did as the Master. And the thing with the Master was, apparently it was the end of his life, he'd done all his regenerations, and for some reason it became this sort of like CGI worm snake thing that slithered into Eric Roberts's body and became the Master. And all I could think was, huh? That was crazy. But the story does plod along quite nicely. The Master wants to take over the Doctor's body to keep on living, and he goes at great lengths to do it. But the reason I'm bringing up the DVD is I was watching the behind the scenes stuff, and I was so surprised at how long it took them to get this movie onto the TV. It was one producer, Philip David Siegel, who spent 7 years trying to get this onto the screen. And because of that, I admire him. He had it going through different writers, different producers, different directors, different film companies. And because Peter David Siegel was a producer on seaQuest, he also had ties to Steven Spielberg, and he was rumoured to be producing as well. But eventually that fell through. Like I said, I admire him because he just kept pestering and pestering to get this done. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as well, because they kept changing the story, and eventually, as they were filming, the story kept changing then as well, and that's never a good thing. And I remember at the time, after it had been shown, that it felt like it was the final nail in the Doctor's coffin. Thankfully though, it wasn't. But after all that, I'm still happy I've got this in my collection. And now it's time for me to review a movie, Brightburn. And the reason I got around to watching this is because, like I said on the last video, I had Sky Cinema for a week. This is one of those films that I watched. And one of the things that I noticed straight away was that the story seemed very, very familiar. It's basically a rip-off of Superman. However, in this story, it's Superman at an early age going crazy. He starts stalking a girl, starts injuring people, and then he starts murdering. I did like the way that the character was sort of developing his powers and starting to realise what he could do. And he was treading this fine line of between good and evil, but obviously he fell towards evil. Mainly because the spaceship that he came in started sending him these little messages in his head. And I have to say, some of the killing is a bit gruesome. It's not for kids. Although there was one part where I saw one character and straight away I went, bye, and sure enough, he died. And then there was another plot point that I'm not going to spoil here, but I knew exactly what was going to happen, and I was correct. So there was some predictability within the film, apart from right at the end. I thought it was going to go in one direction. No, it went the other way. And because of that, I felt very disappointed in that ending. If anything, the film reminded me of Chronicle. This film right here, this is a lot better. I mean, I'm not saying Brightburn isn't worth watching, I'm just saying it has a disappointing ending. And that's why I'm only giving it a... it could have been better. And that's it, that's my review of Brightburn. And it's also the end of this episode. And I've got more to come because I watched quite a few films while I had Sky Cinema for a week. It's just a case of me getting off my lazy butt, getting the camera set up and filming reviews about them. And we all know how lazy I am. Anyway, it's now time for me to go. All that's left for me to say is thank you for watching and subscribing if you have, and liking this video if you did. Until the next time, peace out. I have a feeling that throughout this entire video I've been way too bright and pasty. It's because the sun refuses to come out, it's lots of cloud cover, and well, let me just show you what happens when I turn out this light. I've got a shade on this side of my face. I'm sure there's more colour and less brightness, but right now I look like Two-Face. And I thought with the light on, this is the lesser of two evils. Although saying that, with this on, I look like the Joker. He's more evil than Two-Face. And there's another problem with having the light on. I'm sweating. Ugh.